Now dubbed Linsanity for his success and the excitement he generates, we're going to take a look at his journey and current success and what it means for others who don't fit into those stereotypes. Joining us now is David Leonard, PhD and professor at the Department of Critical Culture, Gender and Race Studies at Washington State University. Welcome, Professor. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
So tell us about Jeremy Lin. Who is he? Where did he come seemingly out of nowhere?
Well, I actually think that's one of the important points, that while clearly his ascendance and rise has been dramatic and you know, in like 2 weeks' time, but he actually doesn't come out of nowhere. I mean, he had an amazing game against UConn when he was a senior that put him on the map. He had a dramatic game when he was playing Summer League, right when he came out of college and actually dominated then rookie sensation John Wall. And so the narrative has been that he's come out of nowhere, that you know, that nobody gave him a chance. And while clearly he's exceeding even his own expectations, as he said, I think we need to be careful in reducing him to you know, a guy who walked off the street. I was reading today this column where it said, like, he is all of us. No, he's an amazing talent, and it may have just taken him a while, like it takes a lot of players to find the right situation.
Professor, is it fair to say that perhaps part of the reason he gets the accolades he's getting now is because he's Asian American?
That's a good question, Brian. I think that clearly the shock reflects people's own assumptions and stereotypes, and it very much adds to the narrative. And I also think in the NBA, a place rife with racial meaning, where blackness is constantly put under question, that becomes an underlying theme, that his body, the descriptors that are used to describe him are often put in contrast to the way in which African American players are talked about by the media.
And I guess we've come accustomed to that in America. We listen to the pundits, and all of these things are framed oftentimes in racial terms, but this seems to be in perhaps a more positive way.
Yeah, it is in some sense positive. Clearly there's a celebration and a rightful jubilation in terms of kind of breaking down those stereotypes. Although what I would caution is one, in some ways he's being constructed as this aberration, this unusual person that because of his intelligence, because of his faith, because of all these other factors, that's why he made it. Whereas if we look at, you know, China, for example, and the number of people who play basketball, or looking at Asian American communities, he's actually not the aberration. Yes, he is one of a few Asian American players to be in the NBA historically, but that doesn't mean he's some aberration where athleticism isn't part and parcel. I also think the way in which his success is being framed in terms of his intelligence, as opposed to his athleticism and speed, also kind of reaffirms those stereotypes, and then the way in which he's pitted against African American players is important, because that's reinforcing those stereotypes.
We know. Let me cut to the chase here, because this does raise some interesting points. We talk about him being a Harvard grad. You don't see a lot of Asians in pursuing basketball, football, or baseball, because generally you see them pursuing perhaps more intellectual pursuits. We don't see a lot of Asians pursuing athletic pursuits here in the U.S. And yet, as we celebrate Lin, we say because of his uniqueness, well, are African Americans pursuing sports because we're not intellectually able to pursue other things? I mean, is that the other side of this coin?
Well, I think that's an underlying argument that we see throughout not only media coverage, but in the political world as well. When we have politicians talking about, such as Newt Gingrich in 1993, talking about how Asian Americans have, or Asians have the entrepreneurial spirit that African Americans lack. That is the underlying argument. The underlying argument is that there's a level of values. I think the media coverage very much focuses on values and in distinguishing between the values of different communities. What we do is we let the system off the hook. We let the obstacles off the hook in terms of the way in which educational opportunities, employment opportunities are denied.
Right. There's so much to look at. But one, final question: are there any connections between the Denver Broncos' Tim Tebow and the Knicks' Jeremy Lin?
Well, if you read the media, they would say so. The references and the constant references to Tim Tebow and Jeremy Lin are astonishing. One, the idea that Tim Tebow is the first player to bring faith into the sporting arena is just absurd. So the idea that Jeremy Lin is following in the footsteps of Tim Tebow really demonstrates the power of whiteness in American media, that rather than saying Jeremy Lin is replicating the religious faith of someone like A.C. Green or someone like Avery Johnson, who both emphasize their faith. Bringing it back to Tim Tebow, and in both cases, and even more so with Tebow, it reflects this mythology of the underdog. Tim Tebow was a star high school football player. Yet he's still kind of mythologized as this underdog, this unappreciated, overlooked player. And with all due respect to Tim Tebow, Jeremy Lin has been far more successful on the court than Tim Tebow was.
As you mentioned also, Professor, there have been many other athletes that have brought their faith-based issues to the sport. And that goes back, 20, 30 years.
And often those players, especially we look at players like Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf or Hakeem Olajuwon, whose Islamic faith was demonized. And so we see not only the way that race plays out, but the way that double standards in terms of religion plays out as well.
Yeah, lots to think about there. Thank you so much, Professor. We appreciate your reporting with us today.
I appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.